Welcome to the first episode of the Deep Wild Tech podcast, where we discuss UFOs, technology, science, and memes. I'm your host, Wild Trees. I'm a scientist who studies the paranormal. And today we will be interviewing the Cryptid Bartender. So here is an intro. So the Cryptid Bartender is Harley Sweat. And Harley Sweat is a bartender and bartending instructor in Tucson, Arizona. In her free time, she combines her passions for the unknown and mixology to create her own cocktail recipes that are just as unique as the creatures and legends she names them after. You can find her recipes on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as the Cryptid Bartender. Welcome to the podcast, Harley. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
Great. Well, I'm really glad to have you. And let's jump into the questions we have here. Okay. First of all, when did you start mixing drinks? And when did you start making your own recipes?
I started mixing drinks from home about 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, when I decided I wanted to get out of just being a stay-at-home mom all the time and maybe pursue bartending as my next career. So I started self-teaching that way. But professionally, I've been doing it since last year. And I started making my own recipes to post online in June.
Okay, awesome. So it's very recent. Very cool. Okay, let's see. So your drinks are obviously inspired by paranormal cases, all kinds of paranormal cases. So personally, when did you first become interested in the paranormal?
Years ago, to be honest, I had my first paranormal experience, a UFO sighting to be specific, when I was about 8 years old. And so that kind of sparked a big lust for truth, so to speak.
Awesome. Let me ask you this. Did you, when you were a little girl in grade school, did you ever check out books on the paranormal at your school library?
Oh yeah, especially once I hit about age 12.
Okay.
Then I that was mostly what I started reading at that age.
So I feel like an unsung hero of the paranormal community, at least in America, are librarians, because every grade school I went to had a small section, but they had a section of like paranormal books. And I think that really helped get a lot of interest, especially in children. And I remember I would always write like book reports on these paranormal books, so much that my teachers were like, hey, you got to write a book report, something that's not paranormal related.
No, I was the same way. Growing up.
Awesome. Okay, so next question. What are some of your favorite paranormal cases or incidents?
That's tough to answer, to be honest. I do find the Betty and Barney Hill incident to be fascinating, considering that was the first report of a UFO abduction, and it kind of kickstarted so many classic tales of UFO cases, the missing time, the radiation, illness, etc. So that one, to me, that would really stand out for sure. But the Phoenix Lights, of course, is close to home, being from Tucson. So that one always catches my interest, especially living in a place, Arizona is a giant UFO hotspot. I've seen a couple of weird incidences just since living here. One actually was on the news in 2016. So that's obviously a pretty big one, being an Arizona local.
Absolutely. Yeah, Arizona has definitely been on my radar. And I really like the Phoenix Lights case because it's within recent memory. It's a mass sighting. A lot of people, I think, that saw it are still alive and still in Phoenix.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And not to mention, even the governor at the time finally came out and said, I don't know what that was.
Right. Something I also think it's interesting about the Phoenix case, it's a classic example of how the United States government handles a paranormal case, because their playbook seems to be, we can't ignore it. Let's give an explanation that's sort of believable, but it's really hard to disprove, and let's just like never talk about it again. And which is what happened. So in this case, of course, I think the Air Force said they were running a test with flares. So everything everyone saw were just some flares. But of course, they tried to replicate this. It didn't really work well. And there's just a number of reasons why this is a very bad explanation for the Phoenix Lights incident.
Well, not only that, but they also made a mockery of it on television for citizens to see.
Right. So that goes down in the history of UFO cases. I think you're referring to the press conference held by the governor, I believe,
Yes.
where he had he said everybody was scared. This is based on his own account. Everybody was super scared about the Phoenix Lights incident. So he said, I'm going to have a press conference. We're going to clear the air. And to be fair, he says what he did was to try to calm everybody down. But in fact, it just upset people and it made a mockery. But then he had one of his assistants come out with a UFO costume, and he said, we found a perpetrator. And then he said something like, hey, this just goes to show you're taking it way too seriously. Everybody needs to chill out, basically.
Yeah, and that doesn't solve anything. People are going to them asking for peace of mind, and they did nothing to do that. They don't care.
Right. Once again, from his point of view, he said that he reached out to higher ups, people that would know. I don't remember exactly who, but maybe someone in the military, and they gave him nothing. So he was also didn't really have any answers himself as a governor when he reached out, and he knew everybody was really panicky. But still, it's not excusable, because he could have said something like, we're on it. There's nothing to worry about. I promise that I believe what you saw. I saw it too, but we're doing everything we can to make sure that nobody's in danger. Something like that would have been more appropriate, I think.
Oh, definitely. And the way it was handled was completely unprofessional. It solved nothing. It helped nothing.
Right. Right. And we see that a lot in the paranormal cases, UFO cases specifically. But I think you mentioned this already, but going into our next question, what are your personal encounters with the paranormal? So if you have multiple, feel free to tell us and share what have you seen, what you've experienced.
All right. So my first one, when I was 8 years old, I was just laying in bed looking outside my window. And growing up in Sacramento, we didn't exactly have the best view of the night sky. Lots of pollution. You could barely even see stars. No. But I saw a bright light that stood out. It was a lot brighter than any star should have been, just sitting in the middle of the sky. And I thought, oh, that's kind of weird. But then the light started moving very rapidly, like almost dancing across the sky.
Right.
And it stopped in its original position and then split into two lights.
Okay.
And then those two lights went to dancing, kind of mirroring each other.
Right.
And then they went back into center and split into three lights.
Whoa.
And they were different colors as well. So one was white, one was red, one was blue. And they just kind of kept repeating this dance and going back into one single light for a couple of minutes. And, I'm calling, Mom, Dad, come look at this. But, it was 8-year-old Ash. She's imagining things,
Yeah.
So they didn't see it. But I was watching it for a good solid, 2-3 minutes in the sky. And then they'd stop and just shoot straight into the sky. And that was that.
Wow. That's pretty incredible. And it's got a lot of classic UFO imagery, the splitting apart of the lights, rejoining of lights, the movement. I don't want to ask a leading question, but something that it sounds like was that perhaps this was had a performative aspect to it, like it was a show for you, or it was supposed to entertain you. I mean, did you feel that way? What were your thoughts? And what are your thoughts reflecting on the incident now as an adult?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because my father actually did not want me researching what it was. And his explanation to me was it was God's angels entertaining me to go to sleep.
Okay.
So it's funny that you say that. But like I think I said, I was not allowed to research what it was, because I grew up being taught heavily that alien life did not exist. And I was not supposed to get these ideas in my head. But of course, that just kind of triggered the curiosity more.
Right.
So now as an adult, I mean, I did not grow up far from a military base.
Okay.
I would not be surprised if it was some sort of experimental military craft.
Sure.
So that's kind of what I lean towards, to be honest. But I don't call myself a diehard believer in any aspect or a diehard skeptic in any aspect. It's more like I wouldn't be surprised if it was something more than just tricks of lights or whatever, something more secretive in either way.
Great. Okay. Well, great. I have a couple points that I was thinking about from what you said. One is I can't leave out the child aspect because children seem to be very susceptible to the paranormal. Um, I had my own paranormal stories that happened when I was 10 years old. And another aspect was that you mentioned the military aspect. So UFOs in particular seem to happen near military bases. So this doesn't mean that they're caused by the military. It's just a correlation kind of thing, you know. I'm sorry, there is no, yeah, there is a correlation, but not necessarily a causation going on. It's just that if you
Right.
have a military base, yeah. Okay, well, yeah, very interesting. So yeah, so that's 8 years old. Sounds like your first paranormal experience. And going forward in your life, have you experienced anything else that you'd like to share?
Um, so I don't know if I want to call it a ghost sighting because, in all honesty, I don't have a diehard belief on ghosts versus spirits, etc., what I would call them. Some form of apparition sighting when I was 13, actually, in Northern California. I was helping my great grandfather move from his cabin to a nursing home. And that night I went outside to just kind of mess around, watch the bats flying around. Because, grew up in Sacramento, we didn't really get a whole lot of bats just flying around. So I'm out there playing. And I notice, keep in mind, this is a 3-acre property in the mountains. Not a lot of neighbors, no cars just zooming by, pretty secluded.
Right.
And I see this man approaching the front gate.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, who the heck would be approaching this front gate at 10 o'clock at night? And I, full color, looked just like a normal person walking, and he just walks through the shut gate.
Right.
And
Okay, so this is like a Terminator 2 kind of, just right through it.
just right through it.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah, the gate was totally locked. Just walked right through it. And I'm thinking it's got to be the trick of the light. There's sprinklers going. I've got a flashlight. There's got to be some kind of explanation. Because at that time, I was a diehard skeptic of ghosts and things like that. So I was trying to just figure out a way to explain what was going on. And he's just walking, just keeps going.
Right.
And as I stop, I start to hear his footsteps, but he's just going through objects.
Okay. Yeah.
And at that point, I just panicked.
Sure.
To the house.
Hey, that's very unsettling, and I think that's an appropriate response for sure.
Well, like I said, I was a skeptic. So at that point, it was like, what the shit am I looking at?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so what happened? Did this thing, this apparition, did it fade into nothing? How long were you watching it? What was the end of this experience?
I just ran. It didn't do anything. I just ran at that point. I didn't want to know.
That's great. Okay, okay. What about his clothing? Did he look like a normal human being? You said he was masculine. What about age, clothing, anything out of the ordinary other than, the fact that it was going through solid objects?
I think that what was most odd to me was how modern he looked.
Okay.
He didn't look like some 1800s tough guy cowboy walking around, he like that would have died.
Yeah.
He was just in like khaki pants,
Okay.
white shirt, just
Okay.
regular short blonde hair. Like he looked totally normal
Yeah.
for the time. So that's what was very odd to me, honestly.
Yeah, that is very odd. I guess it would have
Like
been more normal.
Right, like somebody who recently died.
All right. Interesting. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing those two cases. And this kind of goes to the next question. I'll tell you, this is a big question. Yeah. So the next question is, what is your current hypothesis to describe the paranormal? So it's okay if you just want to block it up, into lake monsters and UFOs, but I personally view the paranormal as a whole. But basically, what do you think is going on? Like what is your current explanation for these things?
Honestly, that's such a broad question with so many, that's a case by case thing, if you ask me.
Okay.
Uh, I can't, I don't believe in everything. I don't disbelieve in everything either. Some cases are more plausible than others. So some things might just be mass hysteria. Some things might legit be some kind of whack ass government experimentation shit that we aren't supposed to know about. Other things might be time traveler shit for all I know. I don't know. I'm sure there's something going on and I'd like to know what, but
Yeah.
I can't really give a solid answer,
Okay. Yeah. I like that answer because I think that there's multiple, like you said, there's multiple explanations for the paranormal. That's what makes it kind of confusing, I think, as well. I don't think it's just one thing. But okay, let's see what we got here. So going back to your page. So what is it like for you to run your page? Well, you have multiple accounts, but in general, what has it been like? What has been your experience of running the Cryptid Bartender?
It's been interesting because this was not something I planned on doing. My friend, this all sparked because my friend showed me this shirt with cryptids all over it, and she said to me, "You need to make the Cryptid Bartender a thing." And that's all she said. So I'm like, "What the hell does that mean?" And I started thinking about it, and I'm like, "Hey, maybe I could do this." And it's combining a lot of my lifelong passions into one thing. And I've been making some interesting connections with other people who have podcasts and other mixologists, and even just people who I don't know, but they're reaching out to me and saying, "Hey, this is my experience. What do you think about it? Do you think it sounds valid? Do you think I sound crazy?" And so I've been making all these connections in such a short amount of time. Because like I said,
Right.
I've only been doing this since June
Right.
on a whim. So it's been a very exciting experience, honestly.
Gotcha. So that's been 7 months, I think. If someone's listening to this later in the future, so you've had it for 7 months.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it was
June 2019. We'll say that.
Right.
June 2019.
Perfect. And your friend told you, okay. Another thing I wanted to mention was what the name means. So a cryptid means a hidden, basically. Well, if you look at the root of the word, I believe it's a Latin word. So if you just look at the word cryptid, it means hidden. But it comes from a longer term called cryptozoology, which means the study of hidden animals. So cryptid, I think, just means an animal that's perhaps a legendary animal that hasn't quite been discovered. Is that your interpretation also of cryptid, what it means to you?
Essentially, yeah.
Great.
I think it's a fair assessment.
Great. All right, let's see. Okay. Yeah, so then you mentioned you've met a lot of people. You've seen a lot of growth. I asked you this because I have a page. So one of the reasons I like to reach out to you is because I started my page like 3 months before yours. There's a lot of similarities we have. We have a similar amount of followers. So this next question, let me just tell you, I've had some people message me personally with some really wild stories, kind of just like I haven't really asked for them unsolicited, but I'm really glad I got them. They're really great. But so let me ask you, have you had any weird experiences? Anything strange happen since you started your page, or you're just a Cryptid Bartender in general?
Not necessarily. It's I won't really say anything weird, just kind of eye-opening, I suppose we'll say. I haven't had any paranormal experiences since then, if that's what you're asking, but I guess it's just been a very enlightening experience since I've started this.
Okay, well, that's great. Well, that sounds like a positive. Put that in a positive. So, going back to just paranormal topics in general. So, what do you think are like the least credible aspects of the paranormal? Like, what do you just don't think there's anything to it? Perhaps it's not real. What aspects of the paranormal would you say?
To get specific, I mean, I guess there are a few things here and there when I hear people say, "Oh, I saw this happen," and so there has to be some kind of ghost or whatever. I'm not really fond of orbs as being solid proof of ghost of any sort of haunting or whatever, simply because most of the time I see pictures of orbs and it's just camera flare.
Sure.
So I kind of tend to hold on. I need that paired with a lot more, an EVP or movements, of cabinets swinging open or something, in order to be like, okay, maybe there's something there.
Right.
And then of course there's just a lot of the extreme paranormal, conspiracies and all that jazz that I just kind of shrug off. El Chupacabra is an alien pet that got lost somewhere from a space. What do we have to prove that? Like, okay, it's a fun theory, but we have nothing to prove that that's what happened. So maybe
Right.
let's not count that as truth,
Right. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Some of these stories can get off the rails really quickly without much evidence to back them up. That's for sure.
Exactly.
um,
I try to be middle ground.
that's good. Yeah, that's good. I personally try to live in a world where I believe everything and I don't believe everything at the same time, and I could switch between. So if I hear a case, as I'm thinking about it and researching it, I'm thinking, yeah, this is real. This is real. So I have that open mindset. But then I'll switch over and I'll be like, no, this is not real. And I think that allows me to get both perspectives, perhaps get a better handle on a case.
Definitely. I agree.
Now, what about scary cases? Is there anything that you've heard about, aspect of the paranormal that really scares you?
Not really, to be honest. I've kind of, I guess I'm at the point where I've heard it all,
Sure.
starting at such a young age, and it's
Yeah.
like, all right, whatever, bring it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. I think I know what you mean. Yeah, there are some really I would say the human mutilation cases are very scary. If it wasn't natural causes, there's some in Brazil, I think.
Yeah.
Those are
Well,
pretty.
I wouldn't be surprised. That could be so many different things. Even the cattle mutilations. I mean, like, it's freaky, but there's just not enough solid evidence of what it could be, or even just enough of it happening in general to make me be like, oh my gosh, that is like, it doesn't really bother me that much, I guess. Again, I've heard so many different things over the years and all these different explanations for this and that, both legit scientific ones and, oh, but it could be so much more. I've grown kind of numbed to it, I suppose.
Yeah, I remember talking to my friend once, he's a medical doctor, and I was like, you know what? Nothing phases me anymore. I was like, these portals opening to other worlds. He's like, you sound like some guy that's been to into S&M, and he just doesn't get turned on anymore. I was like, yeah, maybe that happened too. I don't know.
No,
That's
I
kind.
understand. I was actually warned at one of my work locations that a particular room was very haunted and possibly possessed. One of our workers was positive it wasn't just a haunting, but an actual demonic possession. And she was telling me, I asked her for details because I overheard discussion about it, and I was pretty new at the time. And she's all, oh, I don't want to tell you, it's gonna freak you out. I'm like, you have no idea. She's like, no, that's too scary for you. I really don't want to scare you away from here. I'm like, you don't know the things I've seen, the things I've heard, the things I've witnessed. Just tell me, can get it fucking over with,
Yeah.
And so she told me about it, and I'm sitting there. She's telling me how there are stories of a young woman, maybe teenage-ish or so, in black, who haunts a particular room, and they'll hear like laughter and whispers, and equipment will shut down. And there have been a couple of times when that room was actually fully evacuated by customers. And when asked why, they said, because one of your employees told us to leave. And they're like, well, why do you think it was one of our employees? Well, she was in all black, just like you guys. Well, that never happened. And apparently on those nights, there weren't even any women scheduled to work.
Right. Right.
So I'm sitting there like, okay, that's spooky, but that's not enough to freak me out and make me make me run away. I promise I've heard worse. It's okay, you know?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's a very compelling case, but yeah, it wouldn't be anything that would stop me from going. It actually make me want to go there more, probably.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. Let's see. What about, okay, let's say you could have, if you could ask three questions, you don't have to be three, maybe just one, about the paranormal. Let's say you tell God, I'm not saying I believe in God, but you could ask these questions and you would just get the answer. You'd be like, this is what's going on. I mean, what do you want to know? Like, what interests you the most? You know, what do you really want to get to the bottom of as far as everything paranormal going on?
I That's a good question. I would be kind of torn on asking about alien visitations and alien technology and whether or not there is some kind of experimental craft with our military that has paired with alien technology or not, because that's a big thing too, especially if you look into like Project Paperclip, for instance. You know, there's a lot of theories going on that the Nazis had contact with the aliens, and they were working together to create this experimental craft. And then after World War II, we got those Nazi scientists working for us, so that we got the craft to ourselves. And then, you know, that just turns into a whole rabbit hole on its own. But at that same time, I'd also like to know about the possibility of time travel, and if that maybe has affected certain paranormal cases of ghosts, especially like residual hauntings and such, or time specific ones. There's theories behind that as well. Like maybe we're actually hearing another dimension
Right.
speaking as opposed to an actual ghost. We're hearing people living just in a different timeline, things like that. So those are two that I definitely would like to know about, just because it's a fascinating concept to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say what you touched on in the end. Right now I'm not saying I believe it's true, but I'm just working under the framework. I really like the framework that we're dealing with multiple realities, and that sometimes these realities are just crossing over. And so that's what I'm using to analyze a lot of cases, really just all cases, you know, UFO, cryptid cases, um, ghost cases. I like the idea of these intersecting realities. And something else I wanted to say, we've been mentioning like some of these cases, especially UFO cases, could be due to the military. So I just want to say that we know of at least one. It was an interesting story. Okay, so I'm sure you followed the Nimitz case, which is really big right now. It's a UFO case. This happened off the coast of California, I believe in 2004. Multiple Tic Tac shaped UFOs were seen. Well,
Mm-hmm.
what's interesting is that one of the witnesses was Commander David Fravor, and he went on, I think, the Joe Rogan podcast, and he just mentioned an anecdote of he used to have his jet, I guess, it's a military craft. Basically, he used to purposefully like prank people with his jet to scare them into thinking that they were seeing a UFO. So, so we know of at least one person that in the military that uses their high-tech toys to, I guess, hoax a UFO incident just for kicks, basically.
That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. So, I mean, people are going to be people, I guess.
Right.
Um,
I mean, I guess it's better than just, you know, putting vapor trail dicks in the sky or something, right?
yeah, I think so. I mean, if I had to choose, probably, yeah, I think so.
Make more of an impact.
Yeah. So now I pulled up some of your drinks here. Well, by the way, your photography is great. I love all your photography for your drinks. They look like amazing. They look very tasty. The
I try. Thank you.
colors are great. It is appreciated. So we discussed this. I thought I'd go over some drinks. I'd mentioned a drink. You could tell me about the case. And you could tell me about the ingredients and why you chose those ingredients. I think that'd be really great.
Okay.
So, okay, the first one, I already forgot how to pronounce it, but it's and I'm gonna have images of this if people are watching this on YouTube. So the first drink is uh, Arecibo is the name of the drink. So tell us more about this drink, please.
All right, so that one is based on the radio telescope in Puerto Rico that Carl Sagan used to transfer a message into outer space in the hopes that thousands and thousands of years, most likely down the line, alien life will find that and know that we're out there and potentially return the message down the road.
Gotcha.
So for that, I tried to base the flavors. This is kind of my creative process in general when I make my drinks. I try to base the flavors and the ingredients on certain traditions or lore that's related to the creature or experience itself, or even just where it's from. So in this case, it was Puerto Rico. So I used rum, which is very popular in Puerto Rico.
Oh, yeah.
And prickly pear syrup. Prickly pear is grown in Puerto Rico. And I just kind of happened to love prickly pears. I really wanted to do something with it. And I used star fruit on the garnish because that's another fruit that is grown there. So I just kind of created a sort of take on an AMF, but try to make it more Puerto Rican based, I suppose.
What is an AMF?
Adios, motherfucker.
Okay.
That's what it stands for. It's basically or it's also known as a blue iced tea, but most people in my experience know it as, they say AMF.
Okay, great. That's great. I got to remember that for when I go to the bar.
It's a very popular one. I actually teach how to make it where I work. So
great. And then what kind of glass is it in? I don't know the name of this glass style. It's like an hourglass style glass that it's poured into.
To be honest, I always forget the name of it. I have them at home and I always forget the name. It's like a short hurricane glass, basically.
Okay, yeah. So just for the people that are listening, it's a really nice looking drink. It's in this like hourglass shape. It's kind of like an aquamarine color, and it's got a star fruit on the lip of the glass, so it looks like a little star. Great.
It's called a poco glass.
Poco glass.
I just Googled it as I'm sitting here. It's called a poco glass.
Fantastic. Okay, so here's another one. Okay, another drink that this is another one I haven't heard of. It's also very visually interesting. So it's called a TV Man. Please tell us about this.
All right. So I like to do the occasional gag. You can't see my hands, but I'm doing the little quotes, cryptid ones. Okay.
Sure.
For instance, I did a gay frog.
Right.
For all you Alex Jones ones, that's an example there. So the TV man. So last year there was a man who was caught on film just dropping old TVs on people's porch steps, and he was wearing an old TV on his head, so you couldn't see, or she, I don't even know. We don't know who this person was.
Oh, right.
They were so I had this slew of people going, please make a TV man cocktail. So that was just kind of a dumb bonus, goofy one. And my inspiration from that, I work at a movie theater bar, and I'm staring at Sour Patch Kids all day thinking, ooh, Sour Patch Kids. It reminds me of the channel off screen with all the colored blocks and the static sound and I don't know, I kind of associated the flavor of citric acid and that sour grainy texture with that obnoxious static sound.
Yeah, absolutely.
TVs. And so I kind of paired those together and made a layered shot with a citric acid rim, and it tastes like a Sour Patch Kid essentially. So yeah, that's the TV Man, just one of my gag by request cocktails.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. I do remember that case. I like to keep up with the news, and I thought it was kind of cute. I was like, okay, this individual human, we presume, is wearing a TV and just giving away TVs, I guess.
Yep.
And it visually is very interesting. It looks like it's a layered drink. At the bottom, it's like a yellow, and then it goes to like a blue, into like a dark red. It looks like it has ice on top, or is that something else on the top?
That is actually the citric acid rim. Yes, it has lemon cream liqueur, blue raspberry vodka and blue curacao. It has sour apple pucker and cherry vodka. So it has all those like Sour Patch Kid flavors along with the citric acid. It tastes like you just got a handful of them and you're cramming them all in your mouth at once.
Yeah, and I really like the mixing of senses. So you're translating like a sound and a visual of the static into a flavor, which is really great. Really
Well, I mean, what else was I supposed to do? And it's a TV, man. I have to kind of stretch it a bit to make it work sometimes, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so moving along. This is this drink also looks very different. There's a lot of variety in these drinks. Okay, so this one, I think I forgot how to pronounce it as well. But another case I'm not familiar with. It's called the Tokolos.
Tokolos, yes. All right. So this is actually one of my favorite cryptids. I first learned about this one off of Destination Truth. I am a big Josh Gates fangirl. So the Tokolos is a South African entity. And the lore there is that if somebody, say, wants to seek revenge on somebody, they might find a witch doctor who will take a corpse and reanimate this corpse. But the corpse is shrunken down and eyes gouged out.
Okay.
Okay. And it gets better. It gets so much better. I'm going to have fun with this one. All right. So for the ingredients, I tried to roll with some South African inspired ones. Of course, like I used Amarula liqueur. Amarula is actually a type of fruit that is grown in South Africa. And I paired that with like macadamia, and banana is a very big key one here. So the Tokolos actually has a massive schlong.
Oh.
Large enough to sling over its shoulder.
Whoa.
And I had to make sure that was true, because that's not something they said on Destination Truth, okay? Yeah. For obvious reasons. And so I had to Google it. I just typed in Tokolos. I looked in images. I'm like, okay, there's all the art proving that. So that's true. Okay. And so obviously banana and nuts, right?
Yep.
Right?
I'm with you. Right
and
there.
I decided to make this kind of a milkshake one because Tokolos actually love milk.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yes. And then I topped that with like cinnamon and nutmeg, and I put in cinnamon sticks because, like I said, they have their eyes gouged out, and they use like the witch doctors will use a magic powder to reanimate these corpses. So I'm like, okay, mix up the cinnamon and the nutmeg and all that jazz. Ooh, now it's like magic powder on top. We got cinnamon sticks, like we're prodding its eyes out, and bananas and nuts because schlong, and then milk because they love milk. And then it has the amarula, which is a cream liqueur, you know? So I really try to get in depth with matching these ingredients to the history and the lore and the geography and everything. Hey,
my hat's off to you. That's very impressive. The drink looks amazing. I had no idea that was the legend, but yeah, it looks really good. So yeah, this looks like a creamy drink. It's a nice cream color, and probably the banana and the milk, and it's got the cinnamon and 2 cinnamon sticks sticking out of it. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you for educating me. That's I don't know how to feel. I don't know how to feel about that case, but I know the drink is good. Okay. So here's another one. It looks like it might have a chaser. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's El Chupacabra. Why don't you tell us about this drink?
That was actually one of my very first cocktails that I made for this page. And it was kind of inspired by, maybe you're familiar with these, maybe you're not. I don't know. They're pretty popular here. Like those fruit cups that have all the chili and mango and lime and all that jazz.
Yes, absolutely.
On them. Okay. Yes. So I kind of drew inspiration to that and combined it with the concept of a Bloody Mary.
Okay.
So with that one, it's got like gold tequila, spicy tamarind vodka, and then it's got pineapple juice and mango and lime, and it does still have the tomato juice, so it still tastes like it almost tastes like a spicy mango salsa if it was a drink. And then it's got a rim of habanero and cumin and salt and pepper, so it's a very powerful, flavorful drink. And it's got the garnish of mango and lime. And then, yes, it has a goat milk chaser
Ah,
And it,
perfect.
and it comes with, well, you're going to need it because this thing is spicy as shit. All right.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and then it's got the two straws because, you know,
Oh
goat
yeah.
sucker sucking the blood just for aesthetic, you know. So yeah, that was actually one of my very first cocktails I made for this page. And it's been very popular for to those who have drank in it.
Yeah, this is great. I like how all these have different flavors. I mean, obviously you're a bartending instructor, but they come in all flavors. Yeah, I will say also about the chupacabra case, and just I will say this about chupacabra, and just random cryptids that come up, random creatures like the Dover demon, like frogmen, uh,
Mm-hmm.
just random animals. This is what I think might be going on. Once again, this may change tomorrow. I don't know if this is what I'm working on. I think perhaps some of these have to do with portals. So portals have been reported in like Skinwalker Ranch, which is it's like a ranch, but it's in Utah in the Uinta Basin. And some scientists have actually noticed portals open in the sky and something crawl out of it like a humanoid. I think these portals perhaps happen naturally. They occur, maybe artificially they occur. Perhaps there are areas on the planet where it's easier to make one of these portals occur. And I think some of these weird animals, these one-offs like the chupacabra, perhaps they just kind of like snuck out of this portal, just like flew or crawled wherever they were going, scared a couple kids making out, just died, just died in a ditch. I don't know, but
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, I can't, there's just so much we don't know. We have touched so little of even our own oceans. Such a tiny percent has been explored. We are constantly discovering, I believe I think it was just in the past year or something, the Audubon Institute has discovered like 10 new species of birds. They just discovered a new species of seahorse that's like the size of a grain of rice. You know, you just never know, big or small, what is out there. There's so much left to discover. And I've known so many people who say, oh, well, you know, if this was the case, we would know it by now because technology is just that advanced. Bullshit. That is
right.
absolute bullshit. So I'm not going to say no to anything, but I'm not going to say yes to anything either because I don't know. I don't know
Right.
as much as anyone else knows.
Yeah, I agree with you. And some things that make me agree with you or that give evidence to this is well, number one, specifically I'm a biologist, so I study life. And something I learned in my studies is just that life is tenacious and it makes use of every square inch. You know, it
Life
isn't
finds a way.
exactly with the words of Ian Malcolm. Uh, and to me, like you said, humans, we only live on a very selective part of this planet. We only live on the surface of the crust, basically. So we don't live underground. There's huge cavern systems. We don't really live there. We don't live in the ocean, which covers the majority, and we don't live in the sky. So that's a lot of real estate for life to live. And the other thing is that if I were to ask a scientist, maybe specifically a biologist, I asked, hey, do you think there's new species out there that we haven't discovered? Most of them, I think, would say absolutely yes. But then, if I add this little thing, I say, what? Well, do you think any of them are as smart or smarter than humans? And they say no, absolutely not. But so this is going into the a new hypothesis, not a new hypothesis, but one we haven't talked about today, which is the crypto-terrestrial hypothesis. Basically saying that perhaps some of these UFOs, some of these creatures, they're not actually from outer space. Maybe they're not from another reality. They're actually from Earth. You know, the Earth has been around for, I believe, 4 billion years. It's a long time for some other organisms to develop.
Well, not only that, it's a long time for them to learn how to hide.
Exactly. Exactly. And what do we know about life? Camouflage is really big. I mean, we have animals that just mimic their environments or they behave in a certain way to become hidden. I mean, this is a known adaptation that animals have. So I don't see why another animal wouldn't take this adaptation as well. And this also explains this crypto-terrestrial hypothesis. It's also like people see like it had like something come out of a craft and you see it walk around without a mask or whatever. You would think if it's coming from outer space, then it's going to get a virus or its air is not going to be the same. So it's going to have health problems. So you might have to wear a hazmat suit and the gravity would be different. But if some of these creatures are from our planet, well then, hey, you know, they don't really need anything. You know, this is their home as well.
Right.
So chupacabra, I haven't looked too deeply into it, but hey, it could be coming from a portal or it could be a crypto terrestrial. Let's see. How about this one? This is, I think, another joke one, but it's called the Meth Gator. Why don't you tell us
Yes,
about
it
that?
is. Yes, it is. All right, that's another little pride and joy there. So, yeah, little background for those who don't know. So, I guess in was it Tennessee, something, or Kentucky? I don't remember where. No, it was Tennessee. It was Tennessee. All right, so in Tennessee, this guy gets caught, raided by cops. They see him flushing meth down the toilet. Cop says, "If you're not careful, you're going to create meth gators."
Right.
And that took off all over the internet. So of course, then I get people going, "Oh my gosh, please make a meth gator." So
Yes.
I had to do some real brainstorming with this one. I had a couple of friends give me some good ideas. One suggested moonshine. Another one was like, "Well, what about Gatorade?" I'm like, "Well, shit, that should have been obvious, Gatorade." And ultimately, I came up with this hot mess, which well, here's the thing. I tried. Part of my thing is that I like to combine flavors that maybe don't necessarily sound like they'd work, but they
Sure.
do. But they do. They're unique. There's something special you can't. Just like a cryptid, right? They're their own unique little mess, little cocktail of stuff, and
Exactly.
they all create something beautiful. And that's exactly what the meth gator is. It's actually damn good, but it has absinthe. And before anyone freaks out, absinthe will not get you stoned. Okay, because I've
Right.
had people go, "Oh my gosh, you're gonna make us all puke." No, it's not gonna fucking happen. And it's only a rinse in the glass. It's a tiny, that literally means a few drops in the whole glass for flavor. That's it. So y'all
Okay.
can just chill your pants. Uh, it does have moonshine, as in white whiskey. The moonshine you buy in stores is simply pure, unaged white whiskey.
Okay.
Then it has Southern Comfort because South, Tennessee, etc. Gatorade, tonic water, and you stick a beautiful rock candy right in the center because meth down the toilet.
Right.
So yeah, that's just another have fun with it conglomerate of bullshit that also took off pretty well when I posted it.
Right. And it's in a mason jar, I believe, and it's got a red straw as well. So very going with the theme. So let's go from a meth gator to a sewer gator. These gators are getting a lot of play. Why don't you tell us that? Now, this is something I think as children, I saw the movie Alligator. Did you ever see Alligator when you were a kid? It's like a bee
I
monster.
I know what you mean. I feel like maybe I've seen it like forever ago and just don't remember. Like I have like residual faint memory, so maybe I saw it on the TV at one point and I was really little. I don't know.
Highly recommend. It's a very grungy movie, but it's got a sewer gator in it. But why don't you tell us about your sewer gator drink, please?
Well, I had a lot of people asking me for a pickle juice cocktail.
Oh,
I personally am not a big fan of pickles, but I delivered because that's
yes.
what the people wanted. So yeah, the sewer gator is I for that one I try to make it look like it would be called a sewer gator. And so it's not, I mean it's cute but also gross looking because the garnish is two little cocktail onions with a little tiny pickle to look like a gator poking its head out of this like
Yeah,
dirty
absolutely.
looking water.
Absolutely.
But it has pickle juice, Worcestershire, liquid, if that's how you say it, liquid smoke, horseradish, and black pepper, all shaken together and poured it to a highball. And then it's got the little gator poking out, and that one was actually a pretty popular one too. So, like I said, I had a lot of people just saying, "Please make a pickle juice one." There you go. There's your damn pickle juice one, and you even get a little pickle with it. So
Yeah, that one sounds like a meal, actually. That sounds like a meal in a drink. That sounds great. I do like
I've
that.
I've made quite a few of these for people. Actually, they like it.
All right, and then we have another drink here that's from straight out of the headlines. Okay, so it's your Area 51 bomb. Why don't you tell us about this?
Okay, another just hot mess. This one is meant to just knock you on your ass and get the job done. And I've had some people actually tell me they've made this and loved it, but felt like shit the next day because, like I said, it knocks you on your ass, just like how
Yeah.
I imagine going to an Area 51 would do. So I went with a bomb drink, as in, I'm sure you guys know, like Jaeger Bomb and Flaming Dr. Pepper, when you drop a little shooter down into like a pint glass or whatever.
Yes.
That's what this is. I just felt that was appropriate for invading a fucking military base.
Right.
And it has basically in your pint glass, Chardonnay for those Karens. And
Okay.
and no, I put some thought into this. All right, I put some damn thought into this. Equal parts Chardonnay and Monster for the Kyles.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh wow. Oh
Yeah.
wow.
I kind of had to fudge it a little bit for the Naruto runners, and I just kind of use a Japanese gin for it.
Yes.
In the shooter, it is equal parts blue curacao, tequila, because why not? Energy, fun times, New Mexico, blah, blah, blah. Outer space vodka. If you don't know what outer space vodka is, it comes in a green alien head, and it's filtered over meteors.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, so I felt that was obvious, and it's actually in the picture with it.
Yeah.
And the gin, the Japanese gin, and you drop that in, and actually when you drop the shooter turns pretty blue because of the blue curacao, and you drop it into the pint glass, it actually turns into a really pretty fizzy green color, like an alien lime green color. So it's a lot of alcohol plus energy drink. It'll make you feel good for like an hour, and then you're going to go night-night. So,
well, I think what you do is you drink this before you Naruto run into a nice military
or punch the walls down, whatever you got to do. It'll give you that burst of energy you need just to get through, and then you're done.
Absolutely. Wow, that is nuts. Okay, well, we got to talk about one more drink. When you mentioned it before, let's talk about the gay frog. What's going on here? And I actually have a science perspective on the whole gay frog thing for you as well. But tell us about the drink, please.
All right. So as much as I like to get into UFOs and cryptids, etc., I also really like to get in touch with conspiracy theories. And like I said, I'll kind of gag, make up like, oh, this is Florida Man is a cryptid, right? Like obviously not, but it's a joke. So that's kind of what I did with Gay Frog here. And so that one is fruit punch vodka, champagne, Midori, and that's all there is. Oh, and a little edible hibiscus inside for just like a pretty floral garnish. Yeah. And then it gets like a pretty little colored sugar rim and a lemon twist. And I actually had some people telling me that they were making it for their New Year's Eve parties and thought it was a big hit. So that kind of made my year there, made my New Year's Eve. And it's literally just based on the Alex Jones rant about gay frogs and all that.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. Here's what I think is going on. I'm just guessing. I really haven't looked too deeply, but this is what I think is going on with the gay frog. I remember I read about a study. No, there was a researcher, and he was studying frogs that were changing their sex from male to female, and it was because of a chemical in the water. Mm-hmm. And I think Alex Jones heard this and he ran with it. He was like, look, they're making the frogs gay. So it's a really weird way to get there. But I think that might be what it's based on.
Yeah. And I just want to say, I'll touch up on a lot of conspiracies, but just because I am talking about them doesn't mean I'm instantly making fun of them all. I mean, to an extent, yes. But like, I'm not trying to make fun of people who are conspiracy theorists, is what I'm trying to say, because I myself am a conspiracy theorist to an extent. So I just want to kind of give that disclaimer to anybody going, oh my gosh, she's making fun of people like me who don't trust the government. No, I don't trust any of that shit. Okay? Like, I'm just having fun with this, okay? So no one get your panties in a wad. I'm just having a blast with my job. All right.
Yeah, and I think you're bringing a lot of joy to people. I really enjoy it as well.
I'm not a diehard believer. I'm not a diehard skeptic in either thing. I can laugh at all of it. That's what it is.
Great. That's a really a good place to be, I think, when you get like neck deep in all this this type of paranormal world. That's a good position to have. So going forward, maybe you could give us a sneak peek of a couple of drinks you're brainstorming for the future. Tell us about the direction you want to take the Cryptid Bartender going forward.
Yeah, so I have a lot of drinks in mind, really. I basically get a planner and write down each week a different theme. So I have a roster, so to speak, for every week of the year already.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I'm currently working on one that I cannot give too many details yet until tomorrow when I post it, because it's actually also going to be a contest submission and I'm not allowed to give a bunch of details publicly. So, but it's a fun drink. It's a bit of a party drink. And I think a lot of people are really going to like it. I'm currently working on, actually, the next one after that, I'll kind of give some info on. It's based on the Melonhead case. I don't know if you're familiar. Are you familiar with that?
Are these like escape patients from like a psychiatric ward, or no? Am I totally off base?
It's like these inbred Hickville, like human monstrosity type things with like
Okay.
giant heads,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's why they're called the melon heads. So I've got one coming out based off of that. I have one coming out on the Winchester Mystery House in the near future as well.
Wow.
Yeah, so I've got a good selection already planned, but I don't like to give too much detail yet until people can see.
All right. Fantastic. Fantastic. And then maybe this is something we could discuss in the future, but I would wanted to ask you, perhaps you could design a drink for a Deep Wild Tech. I'd be honored, to have something that reflects the page that we have.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to. And also, I just realized I kind of dismissed the second part of your question there for what I'm trying to do with the Cryptid Bartender work in the future. I'm hoping to build up enough of a following to where I can start I do a lot of local conventions, visit those, and so I'm hoping to kind of get enough of a following to where I can actually guest speak at those, because part of one of the reasons why I'm doing this as a whole is to kind of enlighten people on the fact that we just don't know what's out there. And that includes being aware of what's going on with our government, being aware of what's being kept secret from us. And I'd like people to be more open to researching things themselves. It sounds fun when we're just discussing, oh, maybe there's this creature out there, maybe there's this top secret Illuminati. It's like, guys, no, there's shit going on. And I highly suggest you guys do some research as to what's actually happening in your daily life. So that's a big thing, is I want to get a little more exposure and kind of spread that message out to people more, so they're aware of just how much they don't know about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a really good message to have, and it's absolutely true. Definitely agree with that. So, I guess we know you have your Facebook page, you have your Instagram and your Twitter. Is there anything else you want people to check out? Anything else you want to plug, I guess?
I will be doing a YouTube for actual video tutorials of the drinks soon. Not immediately, but I'm hoping by next month I'll have a few to post so people can actually see how these techniques are done. I would like to show people how to do certain mixology techniques, because a lot of people don't know how to, for instance, how to properly add egg white into a drink, and maybe debunk some fears and myths. Like I mentioned, the absinthe thing, how people still ask, is it going to get you stoned? Is it going to make you hallucinate? No, it's not. Adding egg white to your drink is not going to make you sick, things like that. So if you want to learn more about mixology techniques, and not to mention on the actual tutorials, I want to be able to get more into depth about the history of whatever it is I'm making the drink based off of. I kind of just give a little short blurb on my page or Instagram with the info. I'd like to get more in depth with it, not not like a half-hour long show, but really better explain why I'm choosing the ingredients and get more into depth about what it's about.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to it, and I'd love to have you back again. And I just want to thank you for being the first guest on our podcast. So thank you very much, Harley.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. Talk to you later.